when I agreed to this Zoom, we didn't know that we were going to have baseball practice for 2 hours, so 5 to 7. So if and when, I'm sure it's going to happen, you'll probably see my daughter open the door 50 million times and all that kind of stuff. It just is what it is, right? So my name's Erin Tweed. I have been doing this business a little bit over 6 years. And you said to just share a little bit of my story, right? Okay. So I started this as a nurse. I was working full-time as a nurse navigator. So I was more on the administration side. So that meant the patients that I covered, they were knee and joint replacement patients. And so I had to be at work by 6 a.m. because most of my cases started, like 6:15, they were rolling into the OR. And so I was up early. And that meant at the time I had a 6-month-old, and I was missing all the time in the morning. And, if you have kids, drop a one in the comments if they're like the most happy in the morning, right? And then they're grumpy before bed. So for me, I was only getting like the grumpy side, right? I was like, this isn't like fun, like to, try and get them to eat dinner, try new things and bath time and like all that stuff. And we were also struggling, we had to switch daycare, all that kind of stuff. And, saw an opportunity where I had just done the mom chop my hair and thought, you know what, I need to grow it back out. I saw a post about hair, skin, and nails, and my enroller, Alyssa, said, Erin, have you ever thought about making money using the products? But at the time, she had no idea that I was looking to go back and get my master's. But for me, what was holding me back is I didn't exactly know what master's program I wanted, but that was going to be more student loans and more time away from my family. Because in nursing, it's not just master's, it's like clinicals and masters in school and all these other things. And so I jumped all in. Like I said, I've been doing this for 6 years now. So there's a lot of different pieces of my story. So I'll probably share a little bit more, but I actually worked all the way through hitting presidential rank. So I worked for 14 months and left my job. So it's actually been 5 years at home. As of 2 weeks ago, I've been home doing this full time for 5 years. The month that I hit presidential, we actually experienced a miscarriage. And so if you followed our journey or know any of that, that kind of rolled into starting to expand our family. And then we went in through unexplained infertility, did all the fertility treatments, ended up doing 2 rounds of IVF. And then the one that keeps opening the door, she is our little IVF baby. So you'll see her. So she'll be 3 in December. And so I do have and my oldest will be 7 in January. And then God had a sense of humor when she was 7 months old. I got pregnant on my own, right? And so my 2 littles are 15 and a half months apart. And then Forrest, my youngest, he was born with a cleft lip and cleft palate. So the last year has been filled with, doctor's appointments, 2 surgeries, seeing a special dentist, all that kind of stuff. So, it's definitely been a journey. So I've been through a lot of life in this business, but I'm thankful that I said yes. I didn't know that it was going to be like this. But it's definitely been a huge blessing. So I'm sure I'll share more on it because, when you get to like 6 years in the business, it's like, I don't even know what anymore, what people have heard, and it's been a long time, but it's crazy.
I love that. So I guess my first question for you is, working a job and doing this job, how did you structure your time? And when you started to feel overwhelmed and stressed and like you weren't performing, what did you do to restructure and bring yourself back to your business?
So like I said, I was at work super early in the morning, and I like to make a list, and I love that now we have like the KPI tracker and it's very formal and you can use all of those things, but I am such a list maker. And for me, I knew that if I wanted to get certain things done, like I knew we were working off our 6 list, right? And so I would jot down those things. But when I was working full time, it wasn't like I had a ton of time to like in between or, sit down. I had a desk job, but I was like off rounding on patients, doing different things. Sometimes I would have some desk work, but it was always busy. Like I was always on the go, and again, I was working 50 to 60 hours a week. So I just had to kind of fit this in the nooks and crannies of my day. So for me, I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I still do that today. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and it would start with, I would put some headphones in and I would listen to trainings maybe from the night before, or some self-development. And I didn't necessarily start that when I first got started, but then I started realizing, hey, I want to grow, and I don't want to miss out on certain trainings, but I also have to go to bed by a certain time to be able to function, right? So it was, plugging in, doing those kind of things, listening to, back in the day when I started, we had conference. We didn't have Zooms or anything like that. So, I was listening to recordings of those, or different Facebook videos, and all that kind of stuff. Just anything that I could plug myself into to learn. And then, on the night before, I would determine, like, who was my follow-up list, who did I want to reach out to the next day. Because if I already knew what I was going to do in that time frame, I could get it done a lot more. So there's probably some of you, drop a 2 in the comments if you can relate to this. Sometimes you're like, okay, I have an hour to work, but you don't even know where to begin. And so for me, it was a huge thing that I had to decide, okay, I might only have 10 minutes here, but I have these 10 people that I want to follow up with. You can copy and paste a message pretty quickly, right? And so for me, I just had to determine exactly what I was going to do in that little time frame. So if it was 10 minutes, walking from my office, from the patient tower to my office, and I was sending out some follow-up message, I knew I could do that. When it was my lunch break and I was, I still was working because I was at my desk, it was sending out those actual messages, like planting seeds, doing that kind of stuff. On my drive home from work, I knew I was scheduling potential calls, because I didn't want to take any more time away from my family, but I knew, hey, especially Houston traffic is awful. So I lived 12 miles from my hospital that I worked at, but it would take me over an hour to get home. So I knew I could plug in, 3 or 4 potential calls. I got people on the phone. I was doing those kind of things. Then I went into mom mode. Then, after he went to bed at 7, then it was, okay, now I can plug into a training, or I can do something. And then I was pre-planning my post again for the next day. So anything that I could do to just help be more prepared for the next day. And that's stuff that I still do today. So like I said, I wake up now, still at 4:30, I go upstairs and I do my workout. I come downstairs and I work for a good 30 to 45 minutes before my kids get up. Then we get ready for the day, get everybody off to school. Then I come back, get showered, get ready for the day. Sometimes if they sleep a little bit longer, I might have time to shower before I take them to school, but I get myself ready for the day. That way, if I want to take some pictures, whatever. And then I spend about 2 hours in my office. So that's, creating content, adding things to my story, posting to my wall or whatever. Then I'm focusing on following up. Then I'm focusing on planting new seeds for host to post and different things. But just being very intentional with the time, because again, there's a lot of time in the day, but if you don't determine what you're going to do with it, a lot of it will slide by, right? And then you're going to look at the day and you're like, what in the heck? But if you're saying, hey, I know I have 10 minutes in between this, I can send out, I have like these people that I already know I want to message, you can get a lot done in that time frame. So that's what I would say, has really been successful, because I did work all the way through presidential, but I just was really, really intentional with my time. And communicated a lot with my husband, because sometimes there was times where I'm like, hey, can you go to the bath tonight, because I have another potential that I need to talk with on the phone. And so we just communicated that, but I was really, really effective with the time.
I love that. And I heard that you just said that you would talk to a potential over the phone. So with conference coming and all these new promo codes, of course, all of us want to mass enroll DTs, and we're going to. So what's your advice, and what have you experienced to be the best way to get, a great deal of DTs?
So, I would say you post you get what you post for, or yeah, you get what you're posting about, right? I actually normally say it a lot better, but for whatever reason, my brain cannot function. Okay, so, I would encourage you, if you're not sharing your story every single day on your story and on your wall, you need to do that. Because more than ever, people need this business, right? Because life is going to be so unpredictable. We don't know what in the heck is going to be going on. People are, schedules are constantly changing, rules and things are changing. And so you want to make sure that you're sharing your story each and every day and being consistent with that. For me, I like to message. I know some people You need to be quiet. I knew she was going to come in. But for me, I like to plant the seed. I like to message somebody and say, no, you need to go sit out there and watch Toy Story. But for me, I wanted to plant the seed with people. I wanted them to know exactly. Yes. My husband should be home shortly, so I'm sorry. But I wanted to be the one that planted the seed. And I know there's some people that really highly focus on attraction marketing and stuff, but I want to be the one that somebody might have seen a post or something, but I want to be the one that they come to and go to, because I'm like, hey, I've planted that seed. If I see it in somebody's page and I'm just like, hey, you'd be awesome at this. That's exactly what somebody did to me. I might have come to them about the product, but had she not said, hey, you'd be awesome at the business, have you thought about making money using the products? I would have never considered it. I would have become just a customer. And so I always like to think of it that way. Like, I don't want to leave one stone unturned. I want to make sure that I'm planting the seed, because that's our job, right? Obviously we get paid to enroll customers and distributors, but it's our job to plant the seeds with each and every person that we come in contact with. And so, if you never know what somebody's journey could be, you never know that stone needed to be turned with you planting the seed, that's going to unlock that opportunity. So making sure that you're doing that. And then also, making sure that getting distributor host to post, don't just focus on only loyal customers. You can mass focus on distributor host to post and planting. Okay, go in the other room. Planting those seeds with different people, I think that can be huge too. And then going back and reaching out. Sometimes your text messages, like I'm talking to a girl right now, and literally I can't tell you how many blues there are, blue of my message. But I was like, you know what? I'm messaging her again. And then she's like, hey, can we chat more? I know it's been a little bit since I've actually responded, but can we chat more about it again? And that's what I'm doing. And then again, most of the time I like to get people on the phone instead of going back and forth texting, because you can answer a lot of their questions. They can hear your excitement. If they're not open to that, then that's the perfect time to voice message, right? Because you want them to hear your excitement. A lot of times when you're getting people on the phone, you're like, hey, what questions do you have? Did that all make sense? You can feel different emotions through the phone. And so I think that it can be a powerful tool. And if you're nervous about it, do a 3-way call. People like having that third party validation. So sometimes with my girls, I'm like, hey, like if you have that potential and you're wanting, let's get on the phone, and then I can, be there to be the buffer and just like, hey, what are the other questions? There's so much power in that if you need to do that, so just get creative with it. But I would much rather talk and have a 5 to 10 minute conversation than months and months of back and forth. Let's just see if this is a fit for you. Do you have some time to chat today, or when is a good time, and open it up that way.
I love that you use voice messaging when you're messaging, because it feels so personal. Do you notice more success in signing DTs when you do actually talk to them in person or on the phone or through voice message than you do just messaging?
Yeah, because honestly, like it can be easy, especially when you're talking to a lot of people. It can be easy to get very scripted and sound kind of robotic, right? And you're saying the same thing over and over. And we know that happens. But even when I'm talking to potential loyal customers, I'm voice messaging. Now, the part that I might not voice message is I want to make sure that they totally understand the loyal customer program, right? I want them to understand that there's the $50 fee, so that there's no miscommunication. It's in documentation. But I want them to hear my excitement when it comes to like, oh my God, you're going to love this coffee. This is exactly how I make it. These are the benefits. And honestly, like people are like, oh, okay. Like I never thought about like that. I could even get some French vanilla or whatever they want to do. Or when you're talking about the business, I can say, yeah, like I always love to throw in the feel, felt, found, because a lot of times they're going to be like, like I'm nervous, or I don't know if I have the $99, or, I've seen people doing something like this, but I don't know if I can have success. And so you can talk through those things and you can say, yeah, girl, like I thought the same thing. Like I grew up knowing that my uncle, we used to literally call him a serial network marketer, because he would try every single company under the sun, and it rubbed like, the bad taste in your mouth. And so when I got started, I had some family members that were like, oh God, like, did you read the fine print? Like, are you going to become like, again, like Uncle Tim, that kind of thing. And I was like, no, like, I just am excited about this. And, even my uncle, he's like, Erin, how do you do it? I'm like, literally, I'm just so passionate about it. Like, I'm so passionate about this, but people can hear that in your voice, right? And so you can say, I felt this way too, but here's what I found. I found that, you get to lock arms with a community of people that have similar interests, and they want to see goals happen. They want to help you earn extra income. We have a system in place that's going to make it simple, things that you can do each and every day. And so when you take that pressure off, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, it's really that simple. I'm like, yeah, it's simple things to do. And that's what I tell them too, like nursing was hard work, like having to, go in and like do some of the things, like obviously like I wasn't doing floor nursing, but I would help out in some aspects. But that's like legit hard work. And then, for me, like when I compare that, I would take this 100% any day over it, just because of the blessings that have been brought to it. But it's not hard like that. And so if you're communicating those things to people, then they're like, oh, she's a real person. You start building that friendship and that relationship. And then here's the thing, it's not a scripted robot where you're going to build that communication and that friendship. And that's how people are going to actually stay in your organization a lot longer too. People aren't going to be leaving or worried about that, or, willing to quit, in like 1 week when nobody signs up as a customer, because you've built that relationship, you have that communication, you guys have had those conversations, and it just takes that pressure off. So I think it is really important. And for me, I'd much rather talk it out on the phone, but if it's not an option, then I'm definitely voice messaging 100% when I can.
I love that. And I've started using voice messaging, and I notice I get a lot more responses too versus just sending a script. My next question for you would be, if when you sign a DT, what is your biggest tip for training them? So a lot of us are new or haven't been in the business very long, and we hear, duplication all the time, and we have lots of resources, but do you know of specific like tips or things that have worked for you?
So the first thing that I always do when I have a new distributor is one, and I think most people probably do this now, is obviously, get them on the phone or FaceTime or Zoom within 48 to 72 hours. That way they can, again, you build that relationship, you build that communication, you figure out like what pace do they want to go? What are their actual goals? Like and I always like to say, like, what is your expectation of me as your leader? Because again, sometimes we're like I told Alyssa, I said, if I have questions, I will come to you and ask, and I just need the answer and I'll get right back to work. Like, I just need to know exactly what to do. You tell me what to do, I'm going to go do it. Some people need a little bit more hand holding. Some people want more guide. Like, ask them what their expectation of you is, because you might be blowing their phone up and they're going to be annoyed because they're like, I don't need you to check in on me every day. But then you're not checking in on those people that are expecting that, right? And so setting those boundaries of like, what is their expectation? And then I always ask too, like, how do you best learn? Would you prefer to like watch some videos? Do you want to read documentation? Do you want me to just go ahead and give you some posts and we can jump right into it? Like, what is your vision of this? Because again, if you have somebody that's very green personality and all of a sudden you're telling them to post, they're like red flag. Like, they want to understand the entire process first, right? They want to read it all. They want to know it all. They want to know. And obviously we don't want them to get so into information that they don't even start working, because they're like months down the road, like, okay, now I got it. It's like, no, trust me in this process. Let's lock arms. I'm going to give you the information as we go, but here's some different posts that I would suggest. And so asking people, so I think that kind of meeting is crucial. And then for us on our team, we created we call it like a 30-day newbie guide. And so it's literally just a group page that it says day one, and in the comments, there is story examples. There is a message challenge. There is a post about the opportunity, about the opportunity and product. And then it also gives them a link to self-development, right? Because those are some things that we want them to do. And so I'm like, okay, literally all you have to do is copy and paste this stuff. Now, some people you might have to walk through a little bit more, some people not. Like, it's really, and not everybody has to do it, but we just found it was so much easier than being like, hey, here's this group. Like, we have a whole entire group page that's like a ton of different posts, but it's like some of those people that they're like, oh my God, there's so many things. Like, I don't even know where to begin. They weren't posting because they didn't know what to do. So we're like, go to day one. You're going to save these images, add into your story. I want you to send this out it literally says, send this message to 10 people, copy, paste, send it to 10 people. Here's this post. You're going to post this, make sure that you're spacing. So a lot of those things, it seems so simple, but you're going to have that better grasp on what are people wanting, what is their expectation, what are their goals. And even, they might say, I really need to make $2,000 a month. Even though it might seem like a big goal, that might be the time when you're pulling out the diamond chart and just saying, this is the expectation, this is what it's going to take. But I really like to individualize it to people because I think that that's crucial. Sorry, I had to use my mom voice for a second.
That's okay. I'm 100%.
Yeah, you guys are probably like, I don't need to hear her yell.
I'm 100% green. So like that 30-day thing sounds like a literal dream to me. I love it. What's your best advice for a newbie? So when you sign a newbie, what's your advice to them, like straight off?
I think, again, that conversation of having that. So sometimes people will jump right into host posts. Sometimes you can jump right into like kind of that warm market. I would fill it out with that person. Just say like, look, this is kind of, I always tell people like, look, this is what I did. Obviously we didn't have host posts when I got started, but this is another tool that we use. So if you feel like you're a little nervous about messaging friends and family to become customers, or you haven't quite thought of people that would be interested in it, let's go ahead and just throw up a couple posts, go ahead and get in the giveaway, like start doing these interactions, and then we're going to start messaging people for host to post. So I like to just kind of go there and let's focus on getting your 6 customers, because once they're having those conversations, then the rest is going to fall into play, right? And then help guide them. They can send me screenshots and messages. But those are going to be the big things. And then, again, sometimes like brand new distributors, it's either you don't know where they're going to fall. And so having those conversations of just like, what's your expectation? What do you want? Like, where do you see yourself in the next 30 days, 90 days? Like, how much extra money are you wanting? And how much extra time are you willing to put in? Because too, we want to give them realistic goals and things like that they're working on. We don't want to just be like, yeah, no, you can hit diamond. And then they're saying, I can only work 15 minutes a day, right? That's not realistic. So we're going to say, hey, 15 minutes a day, let's focus on your 6 customers. Maybe once you get acclimated, you might figure out some different pockets where you can plug in, and then we can start talking about the next steps if you're wanting to make some, but you've got to be realistic with people too, right? Because again, like that's the thing. But I think having those crucial conversations up front really takes that pressure off. And then you guys know the expectation of each other, what it's going to take. And then they have a ton of resources. There's different things. And then you just love them where they're at, because some people are going to jump right in. Some people, it might take a little bit. And it's not to say that you're not going to help them regardless of the stage. It's just like, you need to figure out what part they're expecting and what they want from it.
I love that. So what would be the advice you would give to someone who's struggling, whether they're a newbie or they've been in for a while? What's your advice? And have you experienced like the struggle yourself where you've had like low enrollments or months where, it was a little bit more difficult?
I think there's always a crucial piece where you have to flip the script on. Maybe it's, let's say for instance, low enrollments. If you're like, oh my gosh, my enrollments are down. First and foremost, you always have to look at what is the activities that you're doing. Because probably there's something that you're not exactly doing that you were doing before, right? Or maybe you've gotten 5 host posts up versus 10. Okay, so you've got to really be realistic. And so that's something that I tell my girls. I'm like, write down every single thing. Look at where you're spending your time. If you're home right now, that's one thing that, is a transition for some people. I'm like, if you were at your 9 to 5 job, that laundry would still be in the laundry, in the dryer, right? So leave it there. If you haven't gotten your stuff done, make sure that you're getting this done, and then you can go and do it. You can schedule time in for that. But Ellie, go sit down, please. But doing those different things, and then, really being honest with yourself, maybe if you're brand new and you're like, hey, I haven't gotten, as many responses, send some screenshots to your enroller. Maybe it's just tweaking a word, maybe it's just doing that, but you've got to really flip. Okay, go in and go potty. Go in and go potty. I might have to help her in 1 second. Okay, I'll help you in 1 second. But the other thing that I want to add is, flip the script on saying, okay, I don't have enrollments, or, I don't have these people to talk to, but you've got to think of it as planting seeds, right? how many seeds have you planted? Have you planted a realistic number? Because maybe you're in a system, in a season where this is planting season. You're not having your harvest of having all these enrollments because you want to plant, 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 plant. You've got to put in that work too, that you're actually having conversations with people, not just hoping that things are going to happen if you get your 5 hosts to post up. Maybe it's like, no, I've gotten 5 hosts to post up, but maybe I need to start messaging over here a little bit more and doing those things, and shifting that perspective, because I think that's the thing when people start to feel like, oh, my enrollments are down, like they haven't talked to enough people or they haven't planted enough seeds, all that kind of stuff. So hold on one second. I'm sorry. Hashtag mom life.
You're doing great, Maureen.
I haven't passed out yet, so we're doing okay.
Way to go, rock star.
It feels like I'm talking to a rock star.
Kind of.
Okay, sorry. Well, I'll have to tell you guys a funny story. So the other night, my husband was like, "Oh, she can get up on the potty herself," and I'm like, "No, she can't." And so she is going over there, and she literally peed all over the floor because she couldn't get up on there. So I was like, I cannot be the one that just lets her go in there, and then my husband comes home to that, and then I have it over my head. You guys know that. So I'm like, nope. It's a mess.
So I haven't been in a full year yet, but I've heard a lot about planting and harvesting seasons. Are there any tips or tricks to not lose motivation? What do you do to keep consistent and keep planting?
So I was just talking with one of my, when I came home 5 years ago, I didn't really think of seasons, right? And so I came home and I had hit presidential, and I came home like the second week of September. So I had October, November, December. And so if you're kind of in that season of I would ask too, have you pulled out your chart and really looked at what is your chart? Have you updated it? Have you looked at those things? Because sometimes that's the thing. You're almost too nervous to pull out that chart, or you're too nervous to pull out that next step, right? And so you always want to know what's the next thing. And so when I came home, I was like, oh, Ambassador, it's far away. I was like, and then finally, a couple weeks into October, I was like, I have got to get the Ambassador chart. I just need to see how far I am away from it. I know it's a lot, but I just need to know. I need to know what it's going to look like. And so I got it out, and I think we were over 100 distributors away in October. So I planted seeds. And so it came time, and that was just messaging. So, and I will tell you, until the month that I hit Ambassador, that was the first month I would consider mass enrolling, and I enrolled 12 distributors that month. I had never enrolled. That was the most I had ever enrolled the month that I went Ambassador. So nothing crazy before. The most I think I enrolled was 5 or 6. But I was teaching my team to do the same thing. And so comes time for January, and we are 83 distributors away. And so I hit Ambassador on March 30th, but it's because I planted seeds. And so, yeah, it took a lot of work, but all those people that I had conversations. So for me, that's what I focus on. I don't want to just post about the opportunity and pray that somebody sees it. I want to be that blessing that's in their inbox, and that they can decide if they want to take it, right? They can decide if it's something that's for them. And when they do decide, they're going to come back to me because I'm the one that planted that bug in their ear. And so that's how I've always looked at it. So make sure that you're having conversations with people. Make sure that you're planting the seed, making sure that, you're getting those different things. Because again, you're not going to have every single day with mass enrollments. It's just not going to happen. But you want to make sure that you keep up those conversations, because when it's time, those people are going to come.
I love that. So is there any time where your chart has completely fallen apart? What did you do to bring yourself back to, I'm not going to quit, I'm just going to keep moving forward? Was it self-development, or was it a conversation?
I really look at this business and what we do as a long-term career. And so I think you have to have that vision, because a lot of times we come in for the little bit of extra, but I'm not going anywhere, right? I like the blessings that this business has brought and what it's done for our family and the things that we've been able to do. Am I happy with every single month? No. But some months I've had a lot of life happen. Some months, life hasn't happened and they haven't been the best, but I'm still showing up and doing the things that I need to do each and every day. And so for me, I think when you look at it long term, one thing I've always asked myself is, if I was showing up for a 9 to 5 job based on the work ethic that I was putting in that day, would I fire myself? And so I've always held that to me, because if I would, then what's going to happen is I'm going to have to go back to work, and I don't ever want that to happen again. Right. And so I hold that over my head, that I'm like, nope, like I've got to show up for these things. I've got to do these things. And so I'm looking at this long term. I'm like, so many people come into this, and you guys have been in just a little bit, but it's like, God, think about what's going to happen on year 5. Think about what's going to happen on year 10, but compare that to what the possibility is in like your normal 9 to 5 job. It would be nothing compared to what can happen in this. And so when you start taking it from like the quick fix and the quick cash and the quick income and stuff like that, which is amazing, I'm not saying it's not, but when you start thinking of it long term, you're going to catch that vision, and you might have those moments where it's like, I call them 5-minute pity parties, where you're mad at yourself or something didn't go right. It is what it is. But then you focus on that next goal, making sure that you've got your chart out, making sure that maybe you're in a position where you haven't done your dream board again. Maybe it's time to update some of those things. Just because it's not January doesn't mean that you can't update your dream board. And so I think some of those things are super important. But if I really haven't ever stayed in a phase like that. Please go in the other room. I haven't ever stayed in a phase like that, because I've been so focused on just what's my long-term vision, what's my long-term goal. And so what's my alternative? If I didn't show up for this, what's my alternative? Be going back to work. Do I want that? No. So I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do each and every day.
I love that. And I know we only have a few minutes left. So my last question to you is, do you implement KPI? And if you do, is there a certain order in which you do it, or that you found is most productive?
So yes, we do. We've really been kind of honing in on it. So we used to just call it like a 6 list, and we would have different things and we were doing them. But now it's gotten really awesome, where they gave us a checklist, and I love it, because it's just like, I even told Amber, I said, I was like really stressed when you started putting KPI, because I'm like, what the heck does she mean? Like, another acronym we're going to have to learn, and like, what does this mean? And is it a lot more, but it was already things that I was doing, and then it just gave a little bit of different tweaks. So one thing that I tell my team is, if you only have 30 minutes, decide which of those activities you're going to do in that 30 minutes. Because I have some girls that are very green, that she was like, I think I'm overthinking this, because I'm going to 25 people's pages, but then I'm getting so engulfed on their post, and then I don't know how to get off. And I was like, listen, you need to just spend 10 minutes doing that activity. Time limit yourself, because your brain is probably going to process that better, right? Instead of being like 25 people, then she's getting lost in her account. So I think it's giving you a great idea and tips and tricks, but it doesn't mean that it has to all, I don't want to say like the wrong thing, but hopefully that's making sense. Like it can be fluid. It can be whatever is going to work best for your brain. So for me, I'm always posting about my coffee first thing in the morning. I'm always, posting. Why not, take an extra picture, throw a poll on there for samples. Boom, you did it. Then you can throw some slides up, as you're going out. Then, one thing that I like to do first thing in the morning, because I know I'm going to be messaging people and I'm going to be putting stuff on my story, is after I post my coffee, I sit there, and that's when I do my interactions on Instagram and Facebook. I go and knock those out, where I'm commenting, liking, doing that kind of thing, viewing stories. Then we kind of get the kids ready. Then I'll come back. And then that's going to be a time where I'm, sending out some follow-ups. That's the time where I'm going to go back to my giveaway post. Maybe I posted the night before, and then I can start messaging people for host to post. So I'm planting those seeds, starting to get those up. And then, I'm going to make a post about my story, typically around lunchtime or sometimes in the evening. I'm going to add to my story about my story. It's, having that different flow, but I think you just have to do whatever's going to work best for you. And if you only have 30 minutes, decide what of those things can you accomplish in the 30 minutes, limit it to that. Okay, then the next 30 minutes, I can do, this over here. And because I think sometimes we overcomplicate it thinking like this, and this, and you're like, I haven't done anything, but it's like, no, certain activities, and most of it's stuff that you already do. Just don't over stress thinking like, oh my God, 25 people, like for me, sometimes if I'm counting 25 people, I'm like, what number was I on 10? And then I'm like stressed and I'm going back and I'm like, now I've just wasted 5 minutes trying to figure out my count, right? Maybe just say 10 minutes, 15 minutes of doing this activity, those ones that might take you a little bit longer. Like do whatever's going to work best for your brain. And some days, it might shift a little bit, and that's okay because, days are different. Sometimes kids wake up earlier than anticipated. Sometimes, baseball practice is going on or whatever. But you just have to kind of decide what that time frame is going to look like for you in your schedule.
Erin, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time and speaking to us and pouring into us. And it's literally been amazing. I watched Stacey Crown for 2 years before I was like, all right, sign me up. I don't know what I'm doing. And she gave a list of, the top leaders to follow. And you were the number one person I followed. And like to this day, I still screenshot all of your stories. So,
well, good. I screenshot them from other people. So I'm not that creative. Okay. I'm not. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Right. And I definitely, and I know our team does, appreciate your time and all of your advice. And we will definitely let you go because I know you have another Zoom to jump on in a few minutes.
Thank you so much. Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. Bye, y'all.
Bye.